is going on, everybody? Hope you all had a great weekend. Hope you're having a good Monday. I know who had a good weekend, and it's the guy I'm with right here. This guy, Sheets, starting on Friday and then all the way through the weekend, almost took down some of the big ones and did really, really well in it. This is, I would say, I feel like I shouldn't take the weekends off anymore, but I have to. You're the one who makes all the money, so I have no choice. Talk a little bit about how you did this weekend, and then we'll jump into today's slate.
Yeah, I don't think we talked about too much the Friday, because Friday was the early slate.
No, Friday was the main slate. You were sixth in the big one.
That was the main, right. That's right. That was the I think there was the early and the late. I forget what it was. If that was the one where I think I had the Kansas City and whatever. But I'm gonna talk about, like, again, my process in general. What I've been doing. I've honestly been, relying on my numbers and SaberSim to help me build the lineups. And the key is then when I get down to the end, when we have a chance to talk about it, even if I just go into the Discord and see what you like or Rody likes or whatever, just to make a little subtle adjustment to tweak stuff. And I've just been doing the same thing. I've been putting in 20 lineups in the whatever the lottery is. I've been playing one of the big ones, one of the 250 if they have it, one of the single entry, and one of the fan of the qualifier. I've just been rolling with it. I haven't really been questioning much of anything. And I will say this may sound like kind of easy to say, but it took me like a full year of playing before I started to step up and play the bigger stuff. And it's much harder because you're against much harder competition. I'll tell you, like, it's, when I was doing really well, to have to fight like people with like 5 entries in like the 777 or even more, it's really tough. You know what I mean? Because once you think you have somebody covered, then they have like 3 guys in the same team that you have, and you start rooting against yourself, which is like really, really bizarre, But the fact that you don't need like a perfectly optimal lineup to win, it really helps. And yeah, I know it's easy to say, oh, just play the bigger stuff. But look, if you're going to play freaking 30 lineups at $20, what's the difference? I mean, you might as well play one lineup at $250 or something like that. It just makes yourself, gives yourself much more of a chance. Like, for example, like the stuff that I've been doing well in would have had no shot in the lottery ticket stuff that I would play more often. So that's why, so that's been part of the reason I've been doing well, is because the bigger buying stuff has been kind of coming in. So I may as well share my screen.
Yeah,
we
can
talk
a little bit about
talk about yesterday. And again, I wish I was a big insight for you. I really have just been focusing on the numbers and just playing it that way. So from yesterday, and I feel actually kind of bad about this because I actually went into chat like really, really kind of late, and I was telling people, listen, because Rody's, man, he's been awesome, like kind of like just taking over like all the Discord, answering questions and stuff. And I went in there, I said, listen, I updated my projections, and I do apologize to everybody, not apologize, whatever, like during this whole month. I mean, I've been like back and forth to the Hamptons, the weekends have been impossible, so I've missed like a whole bunch of updates and whatever it is. And not that I, can do this all the time, but I do feel as though I could do a little bit better with it. So I'm going to try to at least get one update closer to lock as possible. And I was able to get on there, and I was looking through my builds, and I'm like, well, I can tell you this, I have Burial Montgomery like almost everywhere. And probably my highest owned stack is going to be Cleveland. And then my second highest is going to be somebody else. And then down the list, maybe a little bit of Philly, and then maybe, and Detroit was giving my highest owned. And then as it turns out, when I actually built my lineups, the one that actually ended up in the big one was the Philly stack. So I guess I got sort of lucky or whatever it is. I hope people they get mad. Oh my God, you can't 25,000 and they weren't even your top owned thing. What are you telling us your top owned thing? That's not even going to be your biggest thing or whatever. But yeah, it's the way it just kind of worked out. But yeah, so Philly just kind of just rampaged. And what's really kind of sick is that I missed because I didn't have whatever, like the highest scoring player on the slate by like a zillion points was Ortega from Chicago. He were like 50 fantasy points. I didn't even have him,
Right.
So So it was actually kind of a really so like a whistles guru like all over the goddamn place, like surrounding me. You know what I mean? It's like tough, you know. And so it just worked out great. I had Janikowski. He was the 2.8% owned guy that kind of just got me enough points to differentiate myself a little bit. But pretty much everything else was I had the same guys everybody else did. And I just kind of hung in there.
Nice. I mean, this is a pretty low owned stack, the Philly stack.
Yeah.
And you had the lower owned parts of it. You did the Segura and the DD. I mean, this is. Look, man, it's beautiful. It's tough to win these things, and you came damn close.
Wait, and then this was kind of cool. So I thought these are really cool. So here was my sweat. So you'll see that it's kind of hard. Okay, so you'll see that I beat this guy by 4.35 points, whatever. So here's the deal. So I was in second place going into like the 9th inning of the Washington game. And so I needed to kind of hold on there, have the wrong guy, you know, score a run for someone. Because I couldn't take overtime because so many people had Cubs in Washington. And this freaking Hernandez hit a freaking walk-off to put this guy past me. So okay, fair enough. So that cost me second. So then I was in third fighting this guy Mario. And Mario, he got the third freaking Ortega home run also.
Jesus.
He had Gonzalez. And he also, so I was presuming that Gonzalez is going to get his 4 points, right? And I was still going to be 0.435 points ahead of him, but he had Toro, right? So Toro came up in like the 7th, and I literally could afford no Toro points, right? So Toro went, he fought, he was like 3-0, then went 3-1, 3-2, and he made out. I'm like, awesome. Just he can't get up again. So then going into the top of that, I love baseball sweats because it's like it's such a math problem. So it went to the top of the 9th when Seattle was going to be up. They were up 3-1, and they had the 2, 3, and 4 guy up, and Toro was going to hit 4th. So I'm like, okay, they either have to get all 3 of these guys out, or somehow if they get to Toro come up with nothing. Right. So it went out. I'm like, yes, got him, 3-1. Now all I need is for Seattle to kind of hold on.
Right.
Because if Texas goes to extra innings, then Toro comes up. Not only does he come up, but he comes up with a guy on second.
Right.
Right. So even a sacrifice, I lose. Right. So I'm like, okay. So then first right off the bat, Texas hits a freaking 2-run homer. Right. I'm like, oh my God. But then I realized that what that meant is that this guy's Marco Gonzalez win bonus doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
So I'm like, okay. So then all that's going to happen is this game ends, and then some guy hit a walk-off to end the game. So Toro didn't even have a chance to beat me. So that was so I hung on for third there. So again, you know, I don't like to talk about the wins.
No. This is great.
But only because I've been running kind of hot, and I do have one thing I don't want to say to bitch about. So I'm going to bitch about this because, look, everybody has their flaws and whatever it is. And every once in a while, I just kind of lose my mind a little bit. So I've been trying to play like every day, even when I'm in the Hamptons and I'm drinking and not at my computer and just putting shit in, you know, I'm like, what's the big deal? I have my projections, I'll put them up there, I'll put them in lineups and everything. So I'm glad I won yesterday because Saturday night, I put in some stuff early in the morning, 5 in the morning, like for the 8 p.m. slate. I'm like, if I at least have something. So, but I got back in time to update my projections, change everything, put everything in, and be done with it. And then I was looking at my results, and like I had like so few fantasy points. Like, what was going on? And as it turns out, I had like 100% of a pitcher who didn't even have a projection, who wasn't even playing. And then I had like 3 other guys that weren't even playing. And for the life of me, I have no idea how these guys even made it into my lineups. So I'm actually working on like how this is possible with Saberson right now, like how these guys, and it turns out that guy that I had 100%, by the way, of Josiah Gray Saturday night when he wasn't even pitching. so I was really going to kill him. I'm like, you know, I literally lost like $1,500 because I was just stupid and didn't check my lineups see who I had. So I was able, so the baseball guys bailed me out yesterday.
Yeah.
So we are back. We are into today, and ready for a new slate.
Let's do it. Dude, congratulations. Great job. Keep running hot. I love it.
Yeah.
Everybody in chat is obviously, everybody in our Discord is all pumped up about it.
Yeah.
And you've been carrying the DFS stuff. So we're going to have you be the expert on the show. And I'm just going to sit and ask questions because I am not running as well as you are. And I'm not on fire like you are. So I'm going to pick your brain on a few of these things.
Well, the good news is that tonight it's like a sheet special because it's like gonna be 100 points to win the slate. I think.
Absolutely, I think you're probably right. So let's get into it. Let's talk game by game. Speaking of Josiah Gray, that's going to come up in this first conversation.
Yep.
It's an interesting spot. I definitely have some interest in Josiah Gray here. I know that there are other pitchers. It's a small slate. I'm curious where he ends up ownership wise. Kid's really talented. Obviously, sad to see him go, but pretty happy with the return from Washington as a Dodger fan. Trey Turner and Max Scherzer. We can give up a couple of Josiah Grays, but I do think Josiah Gray is firmly in play today. On the flip side, I think both these offenses are definitely in play. Although I'm having trouble harnessing in exactly who I'd want, but I know it's not your thing. You don't want to play the team that just scored 1 million runs and also won you all the money and everything. But I still like Philly. I think I'd give them a little bit of the edge over Washington here, but I have interest in both sides. What are your takes in this game?
So again, I was driving out. I had to drive out to Newark Airport last night. It was like an hour and a half. And I was dead tired, and it was like a little too early to get like the morning grind, right? Because they usually come up at like midnight. I wanted to get some preview. I wanted to get some content in, and I was listening to I'll throw about that. So remember those Wise Take guys that you did a thing for once? Yeah. So those guys are pretty cool, and it's like kind of interesting because like they sound all stoned and stupid, whatever it is. But some of them they get kind of sharp sometimes. So I was listening to them, and the first thing they were talking about, actually, one of the guys here, I'm just gonna throw it out there, was the Josiah Gray. I mean, you probably know more about him than anybody because he was from the Dodgers, whatever. But apparently, he's got a really, really bad hard hit rate or something like that.
He pitched 2 games.
What's that?
I pitched 2 games.
I think back in the minors, I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't know. So my initial thought going into today was that he was going to be someone I was going to attack. Mm-hmm. In spite of the fact that, as you said, I don't like playing the Philly guys coming off a zillion runs. Right. But so right now I'm actually like on neither. Like right now I'm not getting him in play, and I'm also not quite getting to the Philly hitting. Maybe because we don't know who the lineup is going to be really for Philly yet. I mean, it would help to have some of the better dudes in there.
Yep.
So I didn't quite get. So you're saying that Gray, even though he, it's whatever, he's a strikeout guy. So obviously, like he's got to be in play if he's a strikeout guy, especially on this slate, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a high strikeout guy. I don't know what they're talking about. He's pretty much been unhittable in the minors forever.
Okay.
He gives up very little of anything. Does have some walk issues. He's still a young pitcher figuring it out. I don't even know how long he'll go, but I think that definitely stacking against him is viable. Like I think it's extremely viable. I wouldn't look too much at, what are they looking at? A 20 inning sample size. Even if you combine the minors and majors this year, still like this guy has never given up. Like he's given up 3 runs in a game like a few times in the last 2 years. Like it's in the minor. No, this is a totally different situation. So I definitely could see the argument for stacking against him, and I'll definitely have some interest in doing some of that because I think these teams, I don't want to say overlooked, it's a small slate, so people are all going to get played. But I don't think you're going to see this incredible ownership on both these teams. I think the Yankees, Tampa Bay, and San Francisco and Milwaukee will dominate the ownership. So I'm in on it. I'm in on the Philly side. What about the Washington side for you? Obviously, their lineup is a little weaker than it was. Trey Turner makes a big difference. It's pretty weak after you get past Soto and Bell, but I think that you can make an argument for them as well, right?
Yeah, it's a short slate, and as you mentioned, the teams you mentioned are really, really in good spots. Mm-hmm. Yankees, Tampa, and San Francisco. I guess Milwaukee too. But for me specifically was, we'll get to there. But Yankees, San Francisco, and Milwaukee. So I don't know if I'm gonna get to too much Washington. But then again, Washington might be really low owned as a result. So right now I don't have too much of them, but we'll see.
Yeah, and you do have the Hernandez at minimum cost here. you could play with, a little 3-man with Soto, Bell, and Hernandez. And then on on the Philly side, Brad Miller, Harper and Realmuto are expensive, but Jankowski and Miller sort of even it out. And then I still like Didi sort of down towards the bottom, the guy who helped you out yesterday.
Yeah.
So I can get behind that. All right, let's talk a little bit about Baltimore, New York. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, this is the chalk spot on both sides of the board, right? I mean, it's Haney and it's the Yankees. Those decisions you have to make, right? And as we talk about a lot, I mean, Haney does carry volatility with him, and he's typically not a guy you want to play as chalk. Now, here's a question I have. There are a couple of times where I was trying to play guys against Baltimore in a spot like this, and you had commented that the Baltimore righties don't. Is that right? That the Baltimore righties don't strike out as much
against lefties? Yes.
Yeah. So maybe, even though it's a tough slate to find anybody good, maybe you should be fading Haney. I mean, right now he does rate to be my top pitcher. I'm just telling you that right now. But maybe I mean, you can't do both. You can't play the Yankees and Haney. I mean, like that's just kind of asking for ownership trouble, I think. So I do have Haney rated as my best pitcher, but he does come with him the same volatility that he always does, and I guess it depends on your construction. Is that copping out enough? I mean, and then on the hitting side, I like both parts of the bats here. I mean, I do like. I mean, the Yankees are just loaded right now, and Lopez just see it. Now, I get all the Lopez's and the Suarez's and stuff like that confused. Like, there's one of the guys that just is just the worst, and there's another guy that you say is not, that sometimes you say is not like that bad, and you don't really want to go after. I forget which one this guy is.
The other one's really good. This one is actually not good.
Okay.
He's not not good. He's not the worst. The matchup's tough, obviously, but I mean, the guy hasn't pitched 5 innings since, the end of June. He had one start with 6 innings. Mostly you're talking about 4+ innings of work out of him, like 4-ish innings out of, part of it's because he gets hit. Part of it is because he struggles. Tough matchup. This Yankee lineup is completely different with those guys in the lineup. Now, I'm with you. I like what you said about both sides of this. I have Heaney right now as 3rd and 4th for me pitching wise.
Oh wow!
Partly because I'm thinking of it from a GPP angle, and also, first of all, he has volatility. We talked about the Baltimore guys. He still has enough strike. He's a better strikeout pitcher than we've mentioned in other times when we're trying to take lefties against Baltimore, like it was Yarborough before. He's got better stuff than those guys do. But I like the idea of possibly getting some Baltimore bats in, and I think you're going to get very low ownership on them. The reason I have Heaney a little bit lower on a site, like I have him higher on DraftKings than FanDuel, which is interesting because like strikeouts actually probably, you could argue they mean more, but getting that quality start also means something, and getting the win is another big thing. Now, I think he's going to be pretty good line for the win on both sides. Matters a little more on FanDuel than it does on DK. And he's a little more expensive on FanDuel, but also the Yankees, more than most teams, will pull their pitchers in the 6th and the 5th even because of, the strength of their bullpen. Now that's not quite the bullpen that it was to start the season that was supposed to be this untouchable bullpen. They've really struggled at times since the All-Star break, but still overall a good bullpen that or a bullpen they're at least willing to go to early. So takes away a little bit of it adds to the chance that maybe Heaney doesn't get the 6 innings, the quality start. And potentially if he gets wild, could be taken out even earlier. So I'm trying to find reasons to fade Haney. That's why I'm sort of a little bit off of him. But I mean, you look at it, like I'm looking right now at the bullpens. The Yankees still, even with all their struggles, are what are they, the 8th best bullpen in the major leagues. So I'm just trying to find a reason why not do that. But I like the idea of playing some Baltimore bats. Is there anybody who stood out in particular? Or you're just thinking in general for stacks?
Just in general, Santander, Mountcastle,
Mm-hmm.
Mancini. Well, you're the Mancini whisperer. Hayes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like the Hayes. Santander is another minimum cost guy, so you've got plenty of value out there with Hernandez. I mean, Santander, Hernandez, both are minimum cost on DraftKings.
But you're not going to need any of the value today, right? I mean,
you might though if you wanted to play some of. I mean, like on FanDuel, you might need some value, but
okay.
on DraftKings, yeah, you might need some just because of but Gallo and Rizzo and Judge and
Right.
Stanton aren't even like they're none of them are crazy expensive except for Gallo. And it's going to be hard not to have some interest in the Yankee bats, but I'm wondering if maybe the right strategy today is to try to avoid and pick your favorite ones, or try to include the ones who people aren't playing quite as much. And I honestly, as of this morning, I don't know exactly who that'll be. I know Stanton's really struggled, but he's 4.1,
I know.
and it's hard not to have some interest, especially when they're projected to score 6 runs, and you've got the awful Baltimore bullpen on the other side. Baltimore, unlike the Yankees, they are one of the 5 worst bullpens in baseball. So I'm into, but I'm into taking some shots on these Baltimore guys if you're not going to be playing Heaney, and that is definitely something I'll look at doing. Mountcastle, Mancini. I think Mountcastle and Santander would probably be the first 2 I'd look at, and a lot of it has to do with pricing and Hayes. But certainly as a mini stack or even a full stack, I don't think it's a bad idea. I probably don't, in general, I don't want to pick on the Yankees full bullpen and everything, and the fact that they've got a quick leash and they've got other arms they can use in the bullpen. But 3 or 4 man stacks, I think, make a lot of sense for Baltimore on this small slate.
So one Yankee semi-chalk pitcher to another one, right?
Yeah.
To another New York semi-chalk pitcher, right?
I think this is the other. Yeah, this might be the harder one to fade a little bit. Talk a little bit about your thoughts on this game. It's interesting. The Mets have a 3.8 run total only, and I don't know who's pitching for Miami yet.
Yeah, I got Luzardo right now.
It's possible,
but who knows? Is Luzardo playable at 6,900?
Yeah, I mean, I have to double check where because I didn't have him as a for sure starter. I have
Yeah, me neither.
But let's see, what's the last time he actually pitched? No, he hasn't pitched since June 19th. I don't know how that'll work or how long he'll go. If we get word he's going to,
he has like negative freaking fantasy points 4 games in a row.
I know. That it's gone back, a ways and coming back from, I believe, the minor leagues right now.
I'll pass on that. What about so what I have McGill as just as a guy, it's all pretty ugly, man. And when it's all ugly, I guess you should probably go for the strikeouts. I didn't like that they took him out. I guess I was very biased. I needed him to stay in like another inning, and he gave up like 1 home run. They took him out.
Well, he was at 94 pitches. He's not going to throw more.
Oh, is that what it was? Okay.
I still believe that might be a season high for pitches.
Okay.
So they had to pull him.
Okay.
And instead he put up a good game.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he's got to be in play. There's just nothing else.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, he's in play for me. I didn't get to any of the hitting. Should we be playing the Mets? I didn't see that at first glance.
I need to make sure that Luzardo is actually pitching, and even still, I actually would have I don't think that I'm that interested in the Mets. Alonso as a one-off, maybe. But I could get. It's obviously not a good hitter's park. I'm not especially excited about it, but obviously most of their best hitters are lefties. Oh, Luzardo, you do have Javier Baez there now too.
Right.
But I don't think I want to fully stack it personally.
Okay.
How about you on the so I'm a little higher on McGill, I think, than you are. I think that I would have him ahead of Heaney. But neither of them are actually my favorite, which is kind of interesting.
I'm looking forward to this.
But yeah, this game is sort of blah for me offensively. I don't really have a ton of things to target. Maybe you could argue for Jazz Chisholm just because of his price and the position eligibility, which when I was building lineups actually mattered a little bit today. So yeah, so I can get behind maybe a little bit of that, but I don't really have any interest in these bats. You want to talk a little bit about Seattle, Tampa Bay? I'm guessing that this is a pretty straightforward one that we like Tampa Bay, but at the same time, has this ever, it worked? No, it finally worked the other day. It was the first time it's really worked against Flexen, this whole stacking against him thing that's been the trend to do all year. And meanwhile, the guy, like half of his starts doesn't give up a run. But last time.
Here's a question. So again, I talk about this, thematically with you a lot. So you have a guy with a very, very low strikeout rate against a team that strikes out a lot,
Right.
right? So what's the give, right? Does that mean that you want to play Tampa or that you want to play Flexen?
Because the slate is tiny, I think you can consider flexing, but it's certainly not a priority for me. He's further down the list, and it's only just to get off the chalk for a guy that has a leash, and just enough strikeouts in him to where he could have an upside game. I do think Tampa is the better way to go, but I think it's going to be pretty popular. And then I look at the prices, and I'm wondering how people are going to do it exactly.
I right now, by the way, don't have I'm not getting to Tampa literally at all.
Okay. Okay.
So I guess given their price, I guess that's the story.
Probably the reason why, yeah.
Yeah.
The only cheap bat in the lineup is Kiermaier, which is not the most fun roster when the outfield's loaded.
Right.
So, Meadows is, maybe you could argue, he's a little too cheap. Rosarena is cheap enough for sure. But Lau and Cruz are really expensive. I still like Tampa Bay. I've got them as one of my favorite stacks on the day, but there are some better spots and some cheaper bats. I still think that Tampa is definitely gonna be on my list if they come in lower owned, because even with a small slate, you can't play everybody, like you said. So I have some interest in Tampa Bay, but a little bit's going to depend on ownership, and I'm expecting them to have some decent ownership. But right now, I'm using, like on FanDuel, I'm using Lau as a one-off. I'm using Meadows on DraftKings as a one-off, or Rosarena on DraftKings as a one-off. The interesting thing about this game is that, like, I know he's been a little better this year, but I think maybe we should consider taking some Seattle bats. I mean, you've got a cheap lineup here. Clinic finally had a day the other day, which was nice.
Yeah.
He finally had a big day on Friday, but I think that there's some upside with these bats, and I know Tampa's got a lights out bullpen. I don't want to fully stack it, but I mean, Michael Wacha, I know he's been much better this season, but I'm not ready to buy into this guy's just absolutely awesome and that Seattle can't hit. This is not even a park downgrade for Seattle, even though it's not a pitcher's park. 3 of his last 5 starts, Wacha's really struggled. I think maybe taking some Seattle bats, like even Clinic down towards the bottom, maybe not the bottom, he'd probably be 5th or 6th, I guess. But Toro, Clinic, you got the more expensive Seager, and then Mitch Haniger, maybe even Ty France. Those are the bats I'm considering mixing in, but it's mostly going to be Seattle one-offs, or maybe two men and at most 3 for me. But I think taking some bats there might be a good idea.
I also like the catcher, the Cal Raleigh.
Cal Raleigh, yeah. I like that. And Clinic, because of the other cheap guys, these guys shouldn't have any ownership. And that's obviously the game we want to, it's what we want to focus on these giant slates. I'm not using Wacha at all, but I'm just sure some people out there are going to mention him just because it's Seattle he's pitching against. Any interest in Wacha for you?
Not really.
Okay. All right.
I do have interest in this next one.
Okay, talk about it a little.
I like Dunning. I like Dunning.
Yep.
I heard the case made for Suarez. I don't know. I don't think I want to do that. I'd rather play Dunning. I don't know what else to say. But do we need it?
I'm not sure it's going to be Suarez, by the way.
Oh, it could be Ohtani.
Yeah, that's the thing. And then it changes the plate a little bit. Yeah. Oops. Against Texas with no power anymore.
So for me, I like Dunning here. I don't know if I'm going to get to him or need him. What's going to end up happening? I'll probably end up I'll just probably end up with McGill and Haney, I suppose. But Dunning, I like. If I need the money, I like him as a decent value play. I think he's a good pitcher. Yep. 5 strikeouts, maybe that'll be fine.
Yep. 5.5 K prop, pretty solid. Yeah. 5,300.
I'll take my 5. That's fine with me.
Take the 6 even. Get greedy on this one.
Yeah.
You can get there. I mean, like, he's had some bad, some not great strikeout outings in a row, but he actually went deeper into the game, 6 1/3 last time. I believe that's his season high in innings pitched, which is nice to see out of him. The Angels, we know that they're, I don't want to say they're a boom bust offense. They're not really much of an offense outside of Ohtani, but they can be pesky, I guess. I'm kind of into the Dunning idea. I think he's going to get a little bit of love, but I can't find myself really getting too excited about either of these offenses, except for the fact that they're going to be low owned. And maybe playing Stassi as a catcher would be an option. Justin Upton is way too cheap at 3K still. I'm just going to take that power upside all the time when he's that cheap. So there's a couple things I can like here, but if Ohtani's in the lineup, which I assume he'll be, whether he's pitching or not, it still improves the other guys too. So I don't think I want to fully stack the Angels, but I definitely have an interest in maybe taking a bat or two against Dunning. And I just can't figure out outside of Adolis Garcia who I'd even want to play on Texas.
Okay, I'm with you.
Okay. All right, let's talk a little Pittsburgh, Milwaukee. So you've got, okay, look, the guy who I never been a giant fan of, and I'm not going to be playing him on DraftKings, but on FanDuel, he's in the mix for me, is Eric Lauer. And I don't think I'm going to end up actually pulling that trigger. I just think that because of how quickly this the Pittsburgh lineup can just roll over. And I mean, they've got what, the second lowest run total on the slate. They've got really nothing to be terribly afraid of from the right-handed power standpoint. Maybe you could argue Reynolds is better lefty. Brian Hayes is a solid hitter, right-handed. Stallings is a solid catcher. I don't even mind these guys as one-offs if you're not going to use Lauer at all, but I'm not using Lauer on DK. I just think that he's kind of interesting on FanDuel at 7,500. He sort of belongs in there with the other guys, in my opinion, but I don't know that you really need it. You might just want to play the highest scoring upside pitcher. And yeah, but I like those bats I mentioned as potential one-offs against him on DraftKings.
I know that when my builds actually happen, I'm going to end up with Lauer.
You think so?
I just do. I just think that maybe not even, or maybe I'll end up like leaving money on the table or something.
Okay.
But Lauer, like I said, just because of the win equity here, even that's get 20 fantasy points, maybe just on win equity. I don't know.
No, win equity, and that's why I like him on FanDuel. Win equity, and he's got I think a decent chance at getting that quality start.
Yeah.
Again, if they struggle at all, though, you don't need to. They'll just go right to the bullpen. They've got an awesome bullpen also. So, how about the Milwaukee bats? Where's your level of interest? Because you're usually Mr. Milwaukee, and I'm not usually Mr. Milwaukee.
Yeah, I'm Mr. Milwaukee again today. I live. And look, it's no secret. There's seven, only 14 teams total. I have like 5 of them like ahead of the others. One of them is gross, and the others are the Yankees, as I mentioned. We already and Milwaukee is another one. I already mentioned Baltimore, but yeah, Tellez, Garcia, Wong, maybe an overpriced Dames will go owned. Jackie Bradley, maybe. Is Escobar in? Yeah, he's there now.
Mm-hmm.
All these guys are good, and it's not going to be any secret. Look, Yankees are going to be the chalk, and then these are going to be natural second chalks, between Milwaukee and San Francisco, right?
Yeah.
So that's certainly in play for me.
Yeah, they're going to make a lot of sense. Tellez is going to be really popular at first base. Narvaez is my top catching option.
Okay.
On the slate. I like mixing it in with Wong and Escobar. You could, like we said, you can sort of afford most things today. Tyrone Taylor is cheap if you want to get cheap at the bottom of the order. Abizail Garcia to mix into a stack, probably less so for one-offs, but more for a stack. But yeah, I certainly like Milwaukee. They'll be popular, and I certainly don't disagree with it. So I'm good with Milwaukee. I just don't want to. Again, I'm just going to be the name of the game is going to be try to get off the chalk. But so maybe we play our Yankees and mini Baltimore stacks together. Maybe we play our Milwaukees with a mini Baltimore stack to try and get a little bit different. And maybe you include Jackie Bradley down to the bottom, who no one will play, as a part of your Milwaukee stack if you want to get different, because they certainly make a lot of sense on paper. Pittsburgh feels like it's not just their starting. I mean, their bullpen and starting pitching over the past few weeks has been, I think, the worst in baseball, and they've actually been pitching at home, and this is a much better hitter's park than Pittsburgh. So I don't mind attacking Wilson and using these Milwaukee bats. It's just how much chalk do you want to eat?
Well, to wit, we can talk about the San Francisco game because, San Francisco, I have them right now as very, very close to the Yankees, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that the opposing pitcher is particularly weak. I guess that's why they're showing up.
Arizona also with the worst bullpen in baseball too.
Okay.
So both.
So these guys look really, really strong. I didn't even realize. I mean, Chris
Mhm.
Bryant's on the team now too. I mean, like,
Yeah.
so I like Yastrzemski. I like Wade. I like Crawford. I like Bryant. I like Posey, Duggar even. So these guys are all really, really strong. I was kind of wishing this like a 15 game slate where I could play them. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Where they'd be low owned, but they're not going to be low owned today. Just not enough. I mean, just not enough teams. So I do like them a lot. And as you know, gross as it is, I do like Arizona a little bit as well. As far as the pitching goes, I did not get to DeSclafani. Should I be?
He's my number one pitcher by a pretty
Here
good.
we go. All right, now we're in business.
So I want to run by DeSclafani. Like, first of all, this poor bastard has had to face the Dodgers 6 times this season. Okay, and not only that, he's been good in some of those starts.
Okay.
So he had his last time out. They got to him early. Okay, that's going to happen when you face the Dodgers 100 times out of. I mean, literally back-to-back games, and then 4 out of the last 7 starts or 4 of the last 8 or 9 starts he made was against the Dodgers. In that time, though, still you look at these numbers, and he's pitched against Arizona twice in that period too. He put up 20 and 28. I'm sorry, 20 and 29 in those 2 starts. Almost had the complete game shutout against them last time. Arizona doesn't strike out a ton. They will strike out more now with their lineup depleted and Escobar gone, et cetera. But I think you want to try and pick on this Arizona team. I think people are less on DeSclafani, which is definitely swaying it. I'm not saying he's better than McGill. I'm not saying he's better than Heaney, but I do think that today he probably is. And actually, if you look at the overall season numbers, I'm not really sure why everybody else isn't on this guy. Literally, the only start he had that was really bad. The only starts he had that have been not only not bad, like that have been below, 19 points. He had 1 game against St. Louis, and then he had 3 against the Dodgers in his last, in his last 15 starts, basically. Those are the only games that are like below the 17 range. And he's shown the upside by having, he's thrown a complete game shutout against Washington, put up 44 fantasy points. Against the Angels, he had 9 strikeouts. He put up 35 fantasy points in that one. He's a really good pitcher who's really found himself this year. You obviously have the stadium closed. I'm a big fan of DeSclafani today, especially if the ownership holds. I also think he's one of the better bets of the day with the K prop of 5.5. I think that he's a really good bet to go over that 5.5. And just in that, he's gone the last couple of times he's faced Arizona. He had only 5 in the 5 innings one time where he kind of was struggling a little bit with his control. And then he had the next time out, he had 7 strikeouts against him. This is obviously a weaker Arizona lineup. So I am a fan of DeSclafani from a prop standpoint and as an overall SP1 today. And he is my favorite pitcher as of right now on FanDuel. I think he's got an excellent chance at the quality start to win. And there's huge upside on top of that. His strikeouts aren't wowing people. And they're going to say, oh, his strikeout numbers aren't quite the same as these other guys. He's faced the Dodgers all the time. You know what I mean? Pitching in the NL West between the Dodgers, pitching in Colorado, and then having to face the Giants and Padres is no easy business. You know what I mean? So when you get Arizona out there, you take advantage of those matchups. All these guys' numbers are skewed from having to pitch against those other 3 teams so much. So I like DeSclafani a ton tonight.
I think that the combination of what we discussed here leads me to. I mean, this is what I was thinking going into today. I don't know if you've been putting up your bets of the day up on the site. Or whatever.
I have every day except for yesterday. I didn't get it in because it was.
And every once in a while, I mean, like I really thought that I really think that San Francisco is a good bet today. Between the combination of the Arizona lineup being shit and San Francisco's hitting being better and against a kind of a weak pitching and bullpen behind them, I don't know. I'm not much of an expert with baseball run lines, money lines, whatever, but I think a minus 150 or whatever it is very fair. So I do like San Francisco there. But one thing I wanted to do, so I did a test build while we were just waiting here, just to test my theory and to see what I would actually get. If I just were to put my projections in to see what type of lineups I would generate. And I am getting like 100% Haney, but then then I'm spread a little bit, between DeSclafani, who's probably actually tied with Lauer as my second own. And then there's McGill and they're getting some Dunning and Waka. And let me see what kind of stacks I would be getting. I'd be getting big surprise. Oh wow, I'd be getting I've been getting almost 100% San Francisco, actually. Weird. I mean, not weird. I mean, because it takes into account ownership, so it's not going to get me much Yankees. You know, it's just not.
Right.
Not that San Francisco is going to be like single digits, but that's just what I'm getting. So I guess Haney is going to be the one I just kind of like, I won't say die on the hill with, but as long as I don't have Haney with the Yankees, I think. So I'm not as good as you with respect to this. So I'm not saying to be like overly whatever. I don't mean to say it the wrong way, but you were always really really good at playing. I don't want to say the chalky stack, but playing the chalky teams, but without playing them in a chalky way. Like you were always like really good at like, okay, I have this team that everybody's going to play, but I'm not going to play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll go 1, 2, 3, 8, or I'll do whatever. I'll leave this one particular guy out because shortstop I can plug this guy in or whatever it is. So maybe you can get away with. Maybe you can play, like you said. Maybe you can play the Yankees and just you get rid of the whoever the top play is. Whatever it is. Like don't play Rizzo, but play like an 8-9-2. Like if Rizzo's 1, go like an 8-9-2-3 or something like that, or maybe that'll be like a lower owned thing.
Yeah, and I think that works for San Francisco as well. Obviously not the 9, but 7-8. I think Solano, if you include Solano and Duggar, you're going to be a little bit different because Duggar is not going to make as much sense. But you played both Duggar and Wade. Use Wade at first base. Not to say that neither of these plays will be owned, but trying to get a little bit different with it. Maybe leaving Posey out and actually leaving 300 on the table and playing a guy like Narvaez, who is also going to be popular, but he's going to be more part of the Brewer stacks. And if you're using just one Brewer and it's Narvaez, so that's what my first build was today, was a giant stack with Narvaez and then a one-off from Baltimore and from the Yankees. But I think that, I mean, look, the Giants make a lot of sense. It is the roof will be closed. There's some power upside risk because of that. Widener is a fly ball pitcher who you'd want to pick on somewhere else in general, and he actually has a 5.5K prep too today, which is kind of surprising to me against San Francisco. But between him and the bullpen, I think it's really hard for me not to have a lot of interest in the Giants. The most popular play is going to be Brandon Crawford because he stands out at shortstop today. But I think that literally 1 through 8, they all make sense, and you can stack them any which way. Try to leave out some of the more popular plays. I love Yastrzemski, but he would be the popular one who maybe you consider leaving out. Maybe you consider leaving out Bryant, like I mentioned, and playing either Narvaez or another catching option instead. Playing Darren Ruff, at first base, and then playing both outfielders, Duggar and Wade, will probably be less owned because the position eligibility and using up 2 of your outfield spots. But for the most part, they do stand out along with the Yankees as being my favorite. I do love the Baltimore idea as a mini stack, and I like the idea of getting mixes of the Philly-Washington game as either full stacks. I think that Philly and Washington both make sense as full stacks, and if they get overlooked, I think that's a good way to go to get off of some of this chalk. But I think you're going to want some Yankees and Giants in most of your lineups.
Yeah, you know what they have? They have the lottery being, it's like a $5 today, right?
Yeah. So get really weird in that one. That's all I would say is just get
absolutely. Yeah, no kidding, right?
This is the kind of slate you should, because you've got extreme chalk and these extremely chalky stacks, they're good. They're just why are Philly and Washington, if this game was played and these had the same lineups they did a week ago, I think you'd see a full run higher on this total. And it just, it's a good, like, I like Josiah Gray, like I mentioned, but I think that the flip side of it is that there's definitely, like, this guy can get wild and be not taken out in a few innings. Both teams' bullpens are not going to be nearly as strong anymore because they basically are just, kind of giving up on the season. But that doesn't mean the hitters are giving up. So I really like the idea of getting some Washington and Philadelphia exposure just from an ownership.
All right. So I guess we'll get out of here.
Yeah, Sheets, great job again. Let's hopefully, guys, let us know if you want tonight's Sheets or whether it's Sheets himself. Let us know in Discord how you're doing, and hopefully somebody will take it down. Maybe whether it be one of our true DFS team guys or anybody in our Discord. That's what we're hoping for. So,
and I'll see you on the next call.
Sounds good. All right. Good luck to everybody.
See you in a minute.